this.
Now! Go back now!
We got a war zone down.
"11 years after a relentless machine from the future failed to kill Sarah Connor, a second, even more advanced threat arrives in 1995. This time, the targets are a young John Connor and his mother. But they are not alone. A reprogrammed older model Terminator is sent back to protect the future leader of the human resistance, leading to a desperate struggle to prevent the nuclear holocaust known as Judgment Day.
Have much time. Let's go. This way. Come on.
It's too hot.
Hey guys, today we are traveling through time to explore a world where the future is written in silicon and steel rather than stars. I put a lot of work into these, so if you like what you see, a like and a subscribe is always appreciated. No worries if not. We are diving deep into the technical marvels and the terrifying logic of Skynet as we look at the legendary masterpiece that is Terminator 2: Judgment Day. This is a story about how a single decision can ripple across the timeline and how the machines we build might eventually decide we are the problem. The story begins not in the past, but in the desolate ruins of Los Angeles in the year 2029. The world is a graveyard of rusted metal and crushed human bone. We see the remains of a playground, a place once filled with the laughter of children, now silenced by the shadow of a war that humanity never asked for. This is the world that Skynet built. In this dark future, massive machines known as hunter-killers prowl the skies and the scorched earth, searching for any sign of human resistance. The sound of their engines is a low, rhythmic thrum that vibrates through the rubble. Lasers of violet light cut through the smoke, turning anything organic into ash. This is the ultimate peak of world building, where we see the logical conclusion of our own technological hubris. The ground is littered with thousands of human skulls, a literal sea of white bone that crunches under the heavy mechanical tread of the endoskeletons. These machines are the infantry of the future, chrome skeletons with glowing red eyes that see in infrared and thermal spectrums. They do not feel pain, they do not feel pity, and they absolutely will not stop until every human heart ceases to beat. Suddenly, we transition from the blue-hued nightmare of the future to the warm, hazy night of 1990s Los Angeles. The air in a dark alleyway begins to distort, creating a shimmering ripple in reality. This is the time displacement equipment at work, a technology that requires a massive amount of energy to punch a hole through the fabric of space and time. There is a series of electrical discharges, bright blue bolts of lightning that arc between the brick walls and the dumpsters. The sound is like 1,000 whips cracking at once, followed by a deep, resonant boom that sets off car alarms for blocks. When the light fades, a perfect sphere has been carved out of the environment. A semi-truck has a giant circular chunk missing from its trailer, and the pavement is scorched into a smooth, glassy crater. In the center of this crater, a man stands up. This is the Model 101, a Cyberdyne Systems T-800. He is a massive figure of muscle and skin, but underneath that organic exterior is a chassis of hyperalloy that could withstand a small explosion. His arrival is silent and tactical. He does not look around with wonder. He looks around with a calculated mission.
The T-800 walks toward a nearby biker bar, his bare feet hitting the pavement with a heavy metallic thud that belies his weight. Inside the bar, the air is thick with the smell of cheap beer, cigarette smoke, and the grease of heavy motorcycles. The sound of George Thorogood playing on the jukebox fills the room. The machine enters and immediately begins a tactical scan. To him, the world is a series of red data points. He calculates the height, weight, and threat level of every person in the room. He is looking for clothes, boots, and a motorcycle. It is a very direct way of shopping, honestly. When he approaches a large biker and demands his clothes, the situation escalates quickly. We hear the wet thud of punches landing against the machine's chest, but the T-800 does not even flinch. It is like hitting a brick wall covered in velvet. The sound of bones snapping and the metallic clang of a knife blade breaking against the machine's skin tell us everything we need to know about the power imbalance here. After a brief but one-sided struggle, the Terminator leaves the bar dressed in black leather, wearing sunglasses at night because he is just that cool, and mounting a massive Harley-Davidson. The roar of the engine is a deep mechanical growl that signals the start of his hunt. While the T-800 is getting his wardrobe together, another visitor arrives. This time, the time displacement happens near a police car under a bridge. The arrival is just as violent and energetic, leaving behind another scorched sphere. Out of the smoke steps a thinner, more unassuming man. This is the T-1000, and he is a completely different kind of monster. If the T-800 is a tank, the T-1000 is a scalpel. He approaches a lone police officer, and before the officer can even ask what is going on, the T-1000 has eliminated him. We do not see the kill, but we see the result. The T-1000 touches the officer's uniform, and his entire body ripples like a pond after a stone has been thrown into it. Within seconds, he has mimicked the officer's appearance, his voice, and even his badge. This is mimetic polyalloy, a liquid metal technology that represents the pinnacle of Skynet's engineering. He can become anything he touches that is of equal size, as long as it does not have moving parts like guns or engines. He is a chameleon of death.
Now we meet John Connor, the boy who is destined to save the world. He is a rebellious teenager living with foster parents who clearly do not understand him. John is a product of his mother's intense training. He is not like other kids. We see him using an Atari portfolio and a ribbon cable to hack into an ATM. The sound of the machine whirring and then spitting out $100 bills is the sound of a kid who has been taught that the system is his enemy. John is smart, resourceful, and deeply lonely. He spends his time at an arcade, surrounded by the neon lights and the bleeps and bloops of 16-bit games. It is a classic 90s setting, but there is an underlying tension because we know that the machines he is playing with are the ancestors of the ones that will eventually kill everyone. Meanwhile, we catch up with Sarah Connor. She is not the terrified waitress we remember from the first film. She is a warrior. She is being held at Pescadero State Hospital, a high-security mental institution. The world thinks she is crazy because she keeps talking about a nuclear war that has not happened yet. The environment here is sterile and cold. The sound of buzzing fluorescent lights and the jingling of keys on the guard's belt create a sense of constant surveillance. Sarah has transformed her body into a weapon. We see her doing chin-ups on her bed frame, her muscles roping and straining with every movement. She is prepared for the end of the world, and she is waiting for the machines to come for her. Her doctor, Silberman, views her as a fascinating case of delusional paranoia, but we know the truth. Her eyes are sharp and full of a cold, hard light. She knows the date of Judgment Day, August 29th, 1997, and she knows that the clock is ticking. The T-1000 and the T-800 both track John down to the Galleria Mall. This is where the two worlds collide. The T-1000, dressed as a cop, moves with a frighteningly smooth gait. He shows a photo of John to people, his voice calm and polite, which makes him even more terrifying. John sees the cop and thinks he is in trouble for the ATM thing, so he tries to stay out of sight. Eventually, John ducked into a back hallway, and the T-1000 is right behind him. The sound of the T-1000's boots on the tile is rhythmic and steady. Then, from the other end of the hall, the T-800 appears. He is carrying a box of roses, which is a bit of dramatic flair I appreciate. He pulls a shotgun out of the box, crushing the flowers under his boots. The sound of the pump action clicking into place is a heavy, mechanical promise of violence.
John is caught in the middle. He thinks the big guy in leather is the one trying to kill him. The T-800 tells him to get down, and then the hallway explodes into gunfire. The boom of the shotgun and the rapid fire of the T-1000's pistol create a deafening wall of sound. This is where we see the T-1000's true nature for the first time. Bullets hit him, but they do not draw blood. Instead, they create silver, mushroom-shaped craters in his chest that slowly seal themselves shut with a soft metallic squelch. It is like shooting a bucket of mercury. The T-1000 does not feel pain, he just keeps coming. The T-800 realizes that his weapons are barely slowing the enemy down, so he grabs John and tosses him over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. They crash through a window and escape into the parking lot. What follows is one of the most iconic chase sequences in cinema history. John is on his small dirt bike, weaving through the narrow drainage canals of Los Angeles. The T-1000 has hijacked a massive tow truck. The sound of the truck's engine is a roaring beast, and the screech of its tires as it jumps off a bridge and into the canal is visceral. The T-800 is on his Harley, jumping into the canal behind them with a massive metallic thud that should have broken the bike's suspension, but hey, it is a Terminator movie. The physics of the scene feel heavy and real. The truck is a wall of moving steel, smashing through concrete pillars and smaller cars like they are made of cardboard. The T-800 manages to get John onto the motorcycle just as the truck explodes in a massive fireball. The whoosh of the heat and the roar of the blast fill the screen, but out of the flames walks the T-1000, his silver body gleaming as he reformulates back into the shape of the police officer. He is completely unharmed. John is understandably terrified. He thinks he is being kidnapped by a monster. The T-800 explains the situation in his flat, monotone voice. He is a Cyberdyne Systems Model 101, a machine sent back through time to protect John. He explains that the other one is a T-1000, a prototype made of liquid metal. John starts to realize the power he has. He has a giant, invincible robot at his command. He tests this by telling the Terminator to stand on one leg, which the machine does without hesitation. It is a funny moment that highlights the machine's programming. John realizes that if this thing has to do what he says, they need to go save his mom. The T-800 argues that Sarah Connor is not a priority, but John insists. He is the leader of the future, and he is starting to give orders. They arrive at the hospital just as the T-1000 is making its move. Sarah has already begun her own escape attempt. She uses a paperclip to pick the lock on her restraints, a skill she clearly practiced for years. The sound of the metal clicking and the heavy doors swinging open is the sound of her regained freedom. She overpowers a guard, her movements precise and brutal. She is not trying to hurt him, she is trying to get out. She takes his baton and his keys, moving through the halls like a ghost. When she reaches the infirmary, she finds Dr. Silberman. She uses a needle filled with liquid cleaner as a weapon, threatening to inject it into his neck. It is a cold, calculated move that shows how much of her humanity she has traded for survival skills. The T-1000 arrives at the hospital and demonstrates its terrifying ability to move through solid objects. We see it slide through a set of iron bars, its body thinning out and flowing through the gaps like water. The sound of the metal sliding against metal is a high-pitched, unsettling screech. It then kills a security guard by mimicking the floor he was walking on and then stabbing him through the eye with a needle-sharp finger. This is the horror of the T-1000. It can be anything. It can be the floor, a wall, or even a person you trust. Sarah is running down a hallway when the elevator doors open. Out steps the T-800. For Sarah, this is her worst nightmare come back to life. She screams, a raw, visceral sound of pure terror, and falls to the floor. She remembers the last time she saw this face. It was trying to rip her heart out. But then the machine reaches out a hand and says the words that change everything. Come with me if you want to live. It is the same thing Kyle Reese said to her years ago. She realizes that the machine is on her side this time. The T-1000 appears at the end of the hall and begins to run. It does not run like a human. Its arms are blades, and its movement is perfectly efficient. The T-800 stands his ground and fires shot after shot into the T-1000, blowing massive holes in its liquid metal body. Each shot sounds like a cannon blast in the narrow hallway. They escape into the elevator, but the T-1000 is not done. It uses its blade arms to pry the doors open, the screech of tearing metal echoing in the small space. The T-800 fires through the gap, forcing the liquid metal back. They make it to the parking garage and hijack a car. As they drive away, the T-1000 latches onto the back of the car with its hooked hands. The sound of the metal hooks scraping against the trunk and the T-800 firing a pistol out the back window creates a chaotic symphony of violence. The T-800 manages to knock the T-1000 off, and they disappear into the night. This marks the end of the first act, and the world has been forever changed for John and Sarah. They are now a family of 3, even if one of them is a nuclear-powered cyborg.
They head toward the desert, toward the border, where Sarah has a stash of weapons and supplies. During the long drive, John begins to bond with the machine. He asks if it can learn, and the T-800 explains that its CPU is a neural net processor, a learning computer. However, Skynet presets them to read only when they are sent out alone, so they do not get too many ideas. John realizes they can reset the switch. This leads to a deleted but narratively important moment where they literally open the Terminator's head. The sound of the drill grinding into the metal skull and the sight of the glowing blue chip being pulled out is a peak world-building moment. It shows us the brain of the machine. Sarah wants to destroy it right then and there to end the threat forever, but John stops her. He realizes that they need this machine if they are going to survive. He is starting to show the leadership and the empathy that will one day make him the savior of mankind. In the desert, they meet up with some of Sarah's old friends, a group of survivalists living in an underground bunker. The environment here is hot, dusty, and filled with the smell of gun oil and old canvas. There are weapons everywhere. We see the T-800 helping John fix a car, and Sarah watches them from a distance. She realizes that this machine is the perfect father for John. It will never lose its temper, it will never hit him, and it will die to protect him. It is a tragic realization because it highlights just how broken the world has become, that a killing machine is the best role model available. Sarah is plagued by nightmares of the future. We see her dream of the nuclear blast, the heat wave that turns the city to ash, and the playground into a funeral pyre. The sound of the wind howling as people are turned into skeletons is haunting. This dream is what drives her. She cannot let this happen. She notices a carving on a wooden table that she made years ago, "No Fate." It is a reminder that the future is not set. She decides that she cannot just wait for Judgment Day to happen. She has to stop it at the source. She leaves John and the Terminator a note and heads out to kill Miles Dyson. Dyson is the man at Cyberdyne Systems who is currently working on a new type of microprocessor. He does not know it yet, but his research is based on the remains of the first Terminator found in the factory at the end of the first movie. This is a classic causal loop. The technology for Skynet comes from Skynet itself. Without the first Terminator being sent back, the research would never have happened. It is a perfect closed circle of technological doom.
Sarah arrives at Dyson's house. The setting is peaceful, a suburban home with the sound of crickets and the soft glow of interior lights. It stands in stark contrast to the violence Sarah is about to commit. She sets up a sniper rifle, the click of the bolt, and the heavy breath she takes as she aims, creating a moment of intense tension. She fires, but she misses the killing blow. She storms the house, her boots heavy on the floor, her eyes wild. She finds Dyson with his family and realizes she cannot do it. She is not a cold-blooded killer. She is a mother. She breaks down, the sound of her sobbing filling the room. John and the T-800 arrive just in time. The machine explains everything to Dyson. He shows him his own mechanical arm, cutting through his skin to reveal the chrome and hydraulics underneath. The sound of the knife slicing and the mechanical whir of the fingers moving is a brutal wake-up call for Dyson. He realizes that his work will lead to the end of the world. Dyson agrees to help them destroy all his research. They head to the Cyberdyne Systems headquarters. This building is a fortress of glass and steel, filled with high-tech security and the hum of massive servers. The group enters and begins to set up explosives. The sound of the timers ticking and the clinking of the oxygen tanks they are using to destroy the chips creates a sense of impending doom. The police arrive in force and the building is surrounded. This leads to a massive standoff. The T-800 takes a minigun and steps out onto a balcony. The sound of that gun is a continuous, deafening roar, a wall of lead that shreds the police cars below, but as John ordered, kills no one. The machine is a master of tactical suppression. He targets the engines and the tires, leaving the officers unharmed, but effectively neutralized. Inside, Dyson is mortally wounded during a shootout with a SWAT team. He stays behind to trigger the explosives. The sound of his labored breathing as he holds the detonator over the pile of research is a powerful moment of sacrifice. He blows the building, and the resulting explosion is a massive orange fireball that shatters every window in the area and sends a shockwave that can be felt for miles. The research is gone. The arm and the chip from the first movie are destroyed, but they are not safe yet.
The T-1000 has arrived on the scene on a police motorcycle. He drives it through a second-story window and into a helicopter. Yes, he hijacks a helicopter in mid-air. The sound of the blades chopping through the air and the T-1000's cold, focused expression as he tells the pilot to get out is incredible. A chase ensues on the freeway. The T-800, Sarah, and John are in a SWAT van, and the T-1000 is pursuing them in the helicopter. The helicopter is flying just a few feet above the pavement, the sound of the rotor wash kicking up debris, and the T-1000 firing a submachine gun with one hand while piloting with the other, too, because he has grown extra arms. The van is being shredded. Sarah is wounded in the leg, the sound of her cry of pain and the metallic ping of bullets hitting the van's walls creating a desperate atmosphere. The T-800 manages to disable the helicopter, causing it to crash and slide along the freeway in a shower of sparks and the screech of grinding metal, but the T-1000 just keeps coming. He hijacked a liquid nitrogen truck. This is a crucial world-building detail. Extreme cold is the one thing that can disrupt the mimetic polyalloy. The truck is a massive silver beast, its engine roaring as it tries to ram the van. They eventually crash into a steel mill. The environment here is a hellscape of fire, heat, and molten metal. The sound of the machinery, the hiss of steam, and the orange glow of the vats create an atmosphere of finality. This is where it ends. The liquid nitrogen truck flips over, spilling its freezing contents everywhere. The T-1000 steps out into the cloud of white vapor. The sound of his body freezing is like 1,000 tiny mirrors cracking at once. He moves stiffly, his limbs snapping off and falling to the floor with a metallic ring. He is frozen solid. The T-800 walks up to him and utters the legendary line, "Hasta la vista, baby." He fires a single shot, and the T-1000 shatters into millions of tiny frozen pieces. For a moment, it seems like they have won. But the heat of the steel mill is too much. The pieces begin to melt, and as they turn back into liquid, they start to flow back together. The sound of the droplets merging is a wet, sliding noise that signals their nightmare is not over. The final battle is a brutal, physical struggle. The T-800 is damaged, his systems failing. We see his internal HUD flickering, showing red warning signs and failing power cells. The T-1000 is glitching because of the extreme temperature changes. As it walks, its feet take on the texture of the diamond plate floor, and its hands turn into the yellow guardrails it touches. The sound of the T-1000's glitching is a distorted electronic hum. It overpowers the T-800, impaling him with a massive steel rod.
The sound of the metal piercing the machine's chest and the crunch of its internal components is sickening. The T-800's primary power cell is ruptured. He shuts down.
The T-1000 then goes after John and Sarah. It mimics Sarah, trying to trick John into coming to it. This is a tense moment where we see two Sarah Connors on screen. The real Sarah arrives and fires a shotgun, but she is out of ammo. Just when all hope seems lost, the T-800 restarts using an emergency power source. He arrives with a grenade launcher. The sound of the grenade hitting the T-1000's chest is a muffled thump, followed by a massive explosion from within the liquid metal body. The T-1000 is blown open, its body struggling to hold its shape. It teeters on the edge of a vat of molten steel. With a final distorted scream, a sound that is both mechanical and biological, it falls into the fire. We see it shifting through all the forms it has taken, the faces of the police officer, the foster mother, and the security guard all melting away as the liquid metal is dissolved by the heat. The sound of the bubbling steel and the final hiss of the T-1000's destruction is the sound of the future being saved. But there is one final piece of technology that needs to be destroyed. The T-800 knows that as long as his own chip and his own arm exist, the danger of Skynet remains. He must be destroyed. John is devastated. He has grown to love this machine as a father and a friend. The tears streaming down John's face and his desperate pleas for the Terminator to stay are heartbreaking. The machine, however, understands something now that it didn't before. It says that it knows now why humans cry, but it is something it can never do. It is a moment of profound growth for an artificial intelligence. It has learned the value of human life. Sarah lowers the Terminator into the molten steel using a chain hoist. The sound of the chain rattling and the heavy clank of the hoist is the funeral march for the machine. As he sinks into the glowing orange metal, he gives one final sign. He raises his hand and gives a thumb up. It is a simple gesture, but it represents everything he has learned about humanity and the bond he shared with John. The thumb disappears into the liquid, and the machine is gone. The threat is over. Judgment Day has been averted.
The movie concludes with Sarah and John driving away. The road ahead is dark, but for the first time, there is hope. The narrative of Terminator 2 is a masterpiece of world building because it takes a simple premise of a killer robot and turns it into a complex meditation on fate, technology, and the human spirit. We see how the tools we create can either destroy us or save us, depending on the choices we make. The mechanics of the T-1000 and the T-800 are not just cool special effects, they are symbols of our own potential for both cold calculation and selfless sacrifice. The sound design, from the roar of the engines to the clink of a spent shell casing, grounds this sci-fi epic in a reality that feels tangible and immediate. It is a world where the future is a shadow hanging over the present, and the only way to light the way is through the strength of the human heart. The story of the Connors and their mechanical protector reminds us that our choices are the only things that truly belong to us. Even when faced with an automated destiny that seems carved in stone, the power of a single individual to say no and change course is the most potent force in the universe. The machines may have logic and armor, but they lack the unpredictable spark of human conviction. This journey through a landscape of fire and chrome teaches us that while technology will always advance, our responsibility to each other must advance even faster. The sacrifice of a machine that learned the value of a tear is a powerful testament to the idea that even in the coldest circuits, there is a capacity for something resembling a soul. We are the architects of our own tomorrow, and the blueprint is not found in a laboratory, but in our willingness to fight for a future where the only things we build are things that make our world a kinder place. Terminator 2: Judgment Day remains a titan of the science fiction genre because it perfectly balances groundbreaking technical world building with a deeply emotional core. It did not just raise the bar for what visual effects could achieve, it set a standard for how a sequel can expand its universe while deepening its characters. The legacy of the T-800 and the T-1000 continues to influence how we think about artificial intelligence and the ethics of our own creations. It is a film that asks us to look at our own hands and wonder what we are building today that might change the world tomorrow. It is a timeless story of survival, growth, and the enduring hope that no matter how dark the future looks, there is always a way to make it right.